Welcome everyone, Out of the Woo here as the recording of this Thursday, October 16th, 2025. I am venturing out of the celebration bubble into what I refer to as no man's land, which is Highway 192, which is just across the street from Celebration. I am going to go towards the downtown Kissimmee, towards St. Cloud area, and then possibly back up. And I want to show what's going on Highway 192. Some of the stuff that's still sitting here, decaying, falling apart, rotting away, if you will, and what is being torn down, what is springing up in its place. It's been a little while since I've done something like this, and usually try to cover it every 6-7 months or once a year. Occasionally just to see what's happening in my neck of the woods, getting out of the celebration bubble, and checking out what's happening on 192. They're supposed to be doing a revitalization. See how that's going. Join me. Good to have you here. Shall you? Many years ago in the late 90s, early 2000s, I worked at a pool bar in this motel. It has been under construction since those days. The pool was way back there. They've torn it out. Many years ago. This has been 25 years ago. And this place has been empty, closed down, but they are making it into an extended stay rental facility. And it looks like they are starting to rent back there on the other side of the property I'm standing on. And there is a Marco's Pizza. It's going to be rearing its head next to where the original check-in desk was. So when that Marco's Pizza opens, I might have to go do a little food review. Next to it was this hotel, which was an inn of some sort. I can't really tell what that says. That's a Wheel of Fortune moment right there. Travel lodge, travel inn, some sort of an inn, melanoma, carcinoma, some kind of a noma. Little Fletch reference. And this gift shop closed a couple years ago. Building still standing. You got the flowers out here. Are those petunias? A little throwback. Waffle House still kicking next door. Love a good Waffle House meal. Kind of surprised this has not been torn down yet. Something has gone in its place. I would consider this semi-prime real estate. Got the gator here, gifts for less, written on his hat. And this place had the best prices in town. Possibly their markup was not high enough, even though the shark was giving it a big thumbs up. Maybe they didn't have enough markup because they had the best prices in town. They couldn't stay open. There's a little peek in the window. The roof tiles have fallen down. There's the dressing rooms back there. Little peek in the front window here. Address is 5993 Earlo Bronson, which is Highway 192, or 13th Street when you get closer to St. Cloud. Not sure if that's still accurate or not. I'm going to say probably not. You can see the check-in desk if you peek in through here. Whatever you do, do not solicit. They do not want any soliciting going on here. Used to be a big sign, right? Big, huge metal sign. And I think that was here till semi-recently, and they've just, at least as far as my memory serves, taken a saw to it, cut it down, chopped it off. This is across from Chick-fil-A, and the Celebration Water Tower is right over there. I bypassed a few things I show pretty often when I'm on my golf cart driving down 192, so I'm getting past the point before I need to turn back to go into Celebration to charge Mini Marge, my glorified golf cart. So next to Cracker Barrel, so I'm going to continue heading that direction. But I wanted to show this. This used to be the Movie Ride building. And I covered it in pretty great detail when they were tearing it down. The weeks leading up to the bulldozers coming in and tearing it down. And it looks as if they might be doing something else. Look at this. There's other heavy machinery over here. They could possibly, looks like they've cleared a little bit of the land. They could possibly be building something here. And there's also a couple restaurants here. There's a Pizzeria Uno and a Chili's. and a sushi place, but I believe one of the other restaurants that was next to that just closed. So who knows? Well, someone knows. I don't know what they're going to be doing with this section. It looks like they're primed and ready to do something. Look at all that. All right, the restaurant I was just describing that closed is now a sushi place. So the sushi place is now about ready to open. But this used to be a different establishment. So whatever was here was not sitting very long. You see where the sign used to be right up there. And now there's the new sign. Sushi. Love sushi. I have to check this place out sometime. All you can eat. Many years ago in the 90s, there used to be a tiki bar called the Big Bamboo Lounge. And the last time I was over here showing where it used to be, 6 months ago or so, the building that is now in its spot has not gone vertical, but right there on this corner of the building, on the ground level, was the Big Bamboo Lounge. And I went in there one time, but I didn't frequent it often. In fact, the one time I went in there, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know the history of it. I kind of wish I would have known a little bit more about what it was when I went there back in the 90s. Popped in with a buddy of mine and just kind of walked around and then left. But it was a staple for Disney World cast members. It was a cast member hangout called the Big Bamboo Lounge. You know, pre-Trader Sam's. I'm not saying the cast members are hanging out in Trader Sam's, but you know what I mean. Same time frame as the Adventurers Club at Pleasure Island, I would guess. So that same kind of era. It was called the Big Bamboo Lounge. There's a little bit of stuff online about it. Not a lot, but there's a little info about it online. Those that know, know. It was right there. And where I'm sitting, looking across the street from where I was, is huge patch of land that had 3 motels that they tore down a couple years ago. And now off in the woods, it's used for city or county workers to store road signs, like road construction signs. That's what's back over those trees. But again, I don't know if this is prime real estate, but decent real estate. I think the era of Highway 192 hotels being used for tourists is long gone. That was a 90s thing, early 2000 thing. All the resorts, you know, Universal, Disney World, they're all really trying to get everyone to stay on property. You know, with Disney Vacation Club, the 25 plus Disney resorts that you can rent rooms with cash or credit, all located on property. And then Universal has a number, I'm not sure how many they have, but they have a number of on-site or close to on-site hotels. So not a lot of tourists are staying on Highway 192 anymore. There are some motels, but most of the people that are staying there are extended stay and not so much catering to out-of-town tourists anymore. So that's probably the reason these were torn down. It's an interesting time for Highway 192. It really is. It's an interesting time frame. Interested to see where it progresses. Now this is interesting. Right next door to a motel called the Magic Key Motel. No affiliation with Disney Corporation. Here at 4800 Erlo Bronson, Highway 192, is a sign that states Eden Suites Boutique Hotel that was never built. La Tour Eiffel, Paris gift shop, never built. Still under construction behind that fence. But this is where Mystery Funhouse used to be. A really interesting roadside attraction back in the early 90s called Mystery Funhouse. I think there were 3 of them across the U.S. None of them still exist. But one of them was right here in the parking lot of this never developed Eden Suites Eiffel Tower Paris gift shop place in Kissimmee. Fun fact. All right, moving on. Waiting at a traffic light at marker 12. They have these markers up and down Highway 192. There used to be a series of condos through here. Now it looks like they have some security on site. But riding right along the side of the road where I'm showing, I just parked past the marker 12 stanchion used to be a bunch of vacation homes right along here that were torn down a few years ago. This is right on the corner of 192 and 7 Dwarfs Lane. For many years, there was a dinner show here called Capone's Dinner Show. It was themed around Al Capone and the era, around gangsters and things like that. It is now a Polynesian show, Polynesian Fire Luau. But it was Capone's for like 3 decades. And there's the new sign. Right there. Polynesian Fire Dinner Show at 4740 Erlo Bronson. New show. I gotta check it out sometime, one day. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I worked at Kmart full-time. And I had a handful of part-time jobs at night after the Kmart gig. Worked at Kmart 5 years. One of those part-time jobs I had was a place called Video Center, a video store. And the owner closed down when DVDs started to rear their head. He was like, I'm going down with the ship with this VHS thing. And his selection of VHS was amazing. But he was ready to retire, and he was taking that as his retirement time frame. But between working at the video store, either before or after I quit there doing part-time while at Kmart, I worked over here at River Adventure Golf. And I've shown this before, and I had high hopes that the land was going to be clean because it's been abandoned for, I don't know, 10 years, 10 plus years, maybe more, 15 plus years. But about a year ago, there was an announcement I saw that this land was going to be cleared, and a Wizard of Oz museum, which now resides over on the coast of Florida, was going to move inland to the tourist area of Kissimmee and was going to be built here. But I am seeing absolutely no progress at all. None. So that might have just been a heavy rumor, or it may have been a fact that they have now gone back on, because I don't see any construction here. So yeah, still sitting empty. Looks like it's going to be empty for a while. Oh, there's a fire over there. Look at the billowing smoke. That would be maybe Point Siena area. That's over towards Point Siena. That is a massive billow of smoke. First I thought it was an unusual cloud, but that's definitely not a cloud. That is a cloud of smoke, not of weather. Look at that thing. Holy cow. Used to be an active miniature golf course over here by Walmart on Highway 192 near medieval times. Quite a few times before they put this fence up, I walked around the property, but since then, it's probably been a year ago since I traversed up into the cavernous pirate area. Miniature golf course here. Since then, they put up this chain link fence. But they haven't torn it down. Again, some good real estate here. It's just not being used for anything other than just something that's decaying. See, that door's been busted out. Adventure Island, or Pirate Island Adventure Golf. Still got the shackles right there. They used to be able to get a photo op in. Put your friends and family in the shackles. Pirate ship looks like it's still back there. Yeah, right there. All grown over now with weeds and foliage. It's a nice headstone right there. Set decoration. All right, this is very unusual, the fact that this is open. I haven't seen this open in years. This is known as the 192 Flea Market. I don't think it's open. I think it's just for U-Hauls. Yeah, it's just U-Haul rentals now. But this was thriving at one point, where all the booths were filled up. It was open 7 days a week. But I haven't seen the property open in a while, but the fence is open. There's people back in here. Evidently, there's just one store now. It's the U-Haul rental place. Wow. Yeah, this brings back memories. My flea marketing days back in the early 90s. There used to be one in St. Cloud as you're going into Kissimmee, and now it's completely torn down and gone. This one's still here. Look at this. Do not leave cameras, camcorders, and valuables visible in car. When's the last time you saw the word camcorders on a sign? There's a layout of the land right there. West Vine Street, also known as Earlo Bronson, and also 192. Just U-Haul storage now, or U-Haul rental facility now. Well, I guess storage also, but they also rent. And these apartments have an interesting view of a decrepit old flea market. Let's see if you have one of those balcony views. This is what you would look at all day long from your balcony. Look at that old bike rack. Actually, no, that's a shelf unit. It's a shelf unit. Wow, I haven't driven up in here in years. Years. Pretty cool. Brought back memories. Who knows if I'll ever be able to come up in here again? Who knows if that U-Haul place will even stay open? In front of where the bowling alley is, used to be a Sonny's Barbecue. They just tore it down. This is very recent. The Sonny's Barbecue that sat here abandoned for a decade or more has now been erased from existence. You can still see the foundation. And then just all the rubble that comes with the destruction and tearing down of the barbecue joint. And this is a little farther back, the demolition of this building. There was another restaurant right here. Or some sort of structure that was torn down. I cannot recall what this was. This has probably been leveled for a few years now. And I'm no expert on, progress. But I know usually something does not get torn down unless it's just really unstructurally sound and dangerous. But if it's still structurally sound, which most buildings, once a business pulls out of them are, usually something is not torn down, like for example the barbecue place over there, unless there's plans to put something else in its place. So again, I've heard rumors of a Highway 192 revitalization. Maybe that's what this will be. Fingers crossed. Used to be a Hooters, probably 20 years ago. Used to live in this neighborhood actually across the street. In one of the oldest housing developments in the Kissimmee area. It's back when I worked at Office Max, which is, half a mile from here. But I point that out to point out the parking lot that this former Hooters used to sit in. Because I just heard that this area might be getting a massive overhaul. They might be tearing this whole property out to build apartments. Which makes sense, they're not using this for anything. That used to be a Publix back in the day. I worked at Publix from 1991 to 1994, 1995-ish. At the one in St. Cloud, also the one in Buena Ventura Lakes, BVL. But occasionally they would let me go to other stores to work, and I did work in the Publix here for a couple nights when they needed help. Then it turned into a Big Lots. Then it closed. Home Depot's right next door. And this was Kmart. And after my Publix days, years after, I worked at Kmart. And I worked at the other Kissimmee location. This is the second of the Kmart properties. And I also worked in here for a few weeks when they needed help, but most of my days at Kmart were at the other spot. And I could definitely see how leveling this and building, housing accommodations makes a lot more sense. I don't know if a business would really work in here. Definitely not a big box store. Out front, they used to have those, you put the quarter in the machines and you get on the horse, you ride the horse. They used to be plugged in right over there. You still see the plug-ins. Ah, yes, the Kmart days. Garden center down here. Huge chunk of land that could definitely fill up with some apartments. I definitely foresee that rumor coming true. Well, if it does happen, it makes sense. I can understand why some would say that. Used to have the maintenance area around here for cars. At Walmart, they used to call it TLE, Tire and Lube Express. I worked at Walmart also. I worked at a lot of retail places. But at Kmart, I think they had a different name for it. Just like a mechanic shop of sorts. Big satellite dish up top there. Now we're getting over to the former Big Lots area, loading dock for Big Lots and that Publix I was mentioning prior to Big Lots. Speed hump. Well, no, this is probably the Big Lots. This is it. That was probably the Publix loading dock. This was that was the Kmart loading dock back there. Now we're getting into the Publix. Yeah, this was the Publix, and then eventually Big Lots. The truck lift that would lift up. You pull the pallet jack up on the forklift, or not the forklift, but the lift would go up to the height of the truck trailer. You take the pallet jack off, go onto the truck trailer, pull the pallet off on here, use a mechanism that was probably mounted on the wall to the electricity to bring the lift down. So it'd go from here up, pull the pallet off, put it on there, drive it down, bring it in the back room. That's how it worked. I'm actually surprised they haven't leveled this many years ago. This has been like this for a while. Turned off the thoroughfare I was on and just kind of tucked away, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile off of the highway over there. This is the Orlando Health training ground for the soccer team here in town, the Orlando soccer team. but it used to be the spring training facility, baseball field, for the Houston Astros back in the 90s. And I worked concessions there part-time for a little while, for a brief while, and also met many players for the Astros and their coaches and other team members over here in this parking lot. But also, I went to one semester of Florida Christian College right here at 1011 Bill Beck Boulevard in the 90s. And this property is no longer owned by the college. The college changed its name way after my time. They even had a little lock on there. But I vividly remember, even though that's been 30 years ago, I remember going in that building many times. Since then, they expanded the property. There were students living on property. I did not live on property because I was local. I only went to one semester, didn't even go a full year. Florida Christian College right here. Not sure what they're going to do with the premises. And evidently the college, they changed names. A lot of Christian colleges would drop the word Christian from the vernacular, from the title, if you will. And they would call it something else as time went on. I think Atlanta Christian College, where my mom and dad met, that was the same way. But it became a different school name, and then eventually just folded for whatever reason. Right here in the corner of Bill Beck Boulevard and Sons Circle. I guess that's the name of the road. I just wanted to swing by. My dad was telling me that it closed its doors. There it is. Goodbye, Florida Christian College. Pretty decent sized campus with the dorms and everything. And across the street, Osceola Heritage Park used to have a farm team that played over there, as well as the Astros spring training home for many, many years. Again, that's been a couple decades ago. Not even used for baseball anymore. It's a soccer training ground, or a soccer training facility. Made it to St. Cloud, Florida now. 192 dumps into it. Also, if you're playing a drinking game, and every time I say 192 or highway, it wouldn't end well. So don't do that. This Aldi used to be a Winn-Dixie, one of the two Winn-Dixies I worked at. It's now no longer a Winn-Dixie, it's an Aldi. There's also a Blockbuster Video right over there, or used to be a Blockbuster Video, that I wasn't able to get a job at. Even though I worked at a video store elsewhere, the Blockbuster would not hire me because I had tattoos. Like visible tattoos. It was a long time ago, but yeah. I'm gonna head to my parents' house now and enjoy some off-camera time with them, catch up with them. Maybe have a bite to eat, maybe have some dinner, and then head back down 192 again a little bit later. Probably a little bit later when it's either dusk or nightfall. Or maybe before, not sure. But heading over to my parents now as I focus on this cloud. See you soon. All right, it's nighttime. A few hours have passed. I'm over here at a property on the outskirts of St. Cloud. I mentioned this earlier about the flea market that used to be at the entry point into St. Cloud. This is where that flea market entrance used to be. That was a long time ago, but I spent countless weekends roaming the aisles of the flea market that was right in here. And now it's a bunch of restaurants, shops, traffic. But I'm basically standing in where some of the aisles would have been. Well, sitting in my car where some of the aisles would have been. Pretty fascinating how time changes things. And I never would have thought the flea market would have been, torn down and gotten rid of, but sign of the times perhaps. And over next to the flea market, well, at the entry point of the flea market, right here where this restaurant is, used to be a country bar called the Cracker House. And it stood right here for a long time. Now it's a First Watch. Yeah, Cracker House used to be right here. The entry point into between Kissimmee and St. Cloud. St. Cloud Flea Market is history. And that's going to do it for today. Just a simple ride down Highway 192. Oh, I said the words again, 192. A lot of that in this video. That's the subject matter. Heading home. I'll see you in the next video, the vlog. Thanks for watching. The vlog is over.